See here, guys and girls, that all these people are protecting the parliament for stopping protesters getting in. As you can see here, they've got guns withdrawn on the news channel they're talking about here, as you can see. It must be a scary time for everybody. And we've got a bit more of the protesting on the TV. So, we could play a bit of the protest.
His problem here, and we've seen it now in Georgia, where he's cost the Republicans two seats, and Biden will have control of the Senate. That most Americans will be turned off by this. There'll be some, yes, his base will be excited by it, saying, quite right, this election's been stolen. But most Americans will be saying, this is absolutely terrible. It's an attempted coup, it's anarchy, it's a mob.
Is this the starting of World War III? Coronavirus breaking into the Parliament of America because of the elections of Joe Biden and Donald Trump?
He's had Republican states saying no, the result was
fair. Is it just
He
rioting?
would have lost the votes in Congress today. And he's gone down as the worst loser ever. And Joe Biden made the speech of the president. He will now get off to a very good start because he gauged what was happening and gave the leadership that Trump was incapable of displaying. Who would have thought if you put a lying, cynical, racist, egotistical game show reality star in the White House, it might all go wrong. Yeah? I mean, it's basically, it's almost a fitting end to a terrible, terrible presidency.
And Joe Biden suggesting actually that his presidency will be about the restoration of democracy, Andrew, decency and honour he talked about. You had a Confederate flag being waved outside the Senate chamber. They fought a civil war to stop that flag being in that building.
I know, and actually, I think those two words are very carefully chosen by Biden. No, I think Biden was useless during the presidential campaign. He hid away, pretending he was frightened about COVID. He was uncertain, nervous, hesitant, forgetful. All sorts of talk that he's got early onset dementia. God help us, and that the vice president will be the real president. But he spoke with real authority and dignity tonight. And actually, America is the greatest country in the world. Apparently, it's the most important superpower in the world. We want the president to conduct him or herself with dignity and decorum. And that's something Trump knows nothing about. And he showed himself in his worst colours in the last few weeks since he lost that result. As Kevin says, the worst loser in history. And Biden gives you hope that actually dignity could be restored to the White House. Look, politically, I don't know whether I'm being closer to Biden or another Republican, but we want sanity restored to the White House because, quite frankly, the President of the United States is bordering on insanity. And if there was more time, they should impeach the bloke.
Well,
they've got control of the Senate now, ironically, so they could. Can they do it in 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, with a casting vote of Kamala Harris as soon-to-be vice president. Yeah. I mean, I spoke to a Republican congresswoman from North Carolina in the last hour, Kevin. She said this was disgusting. She was a firm supporter of Donald Trump. All of that has been blown out of the water tonight. Some suggestions that people want to invoke the 25th that Mike Pence should and say he's not fit for office. I mean, it's unlikely to happen. But really, you thank goodness for British politics, where you lose the election and you're out the door almost instantly.
Yeah, well, we've had nothing like this. I'm glad to say, and I don't think we would. Whatever my low views are of Boris Johnson, if he'd have lost an election, he would have left. He would have respected democracy in a way Trump doesn't. Now, the 25th Amendment, which is incapacitated, it could apply physically, or in this case, it will be mentally. It's too late. And all those Republicans who went along with him for the last 4 years, including Mitch McConnell as Senate Majority Leader, who made a very good speech on why he would not back Trump today. But he's been encouraging with a nod and a wink and doing his bidding for years. So many Republicans have contributed to this. They helped recruit a monster that is now out of control and inciting the mob.
But this is also going to be very bad for the Republican Party. I think it will take them a long time to recover from this because Trump's going to carry on blasting and shouting and roaring and raging like a a wounded bull from the sidelines, and it's going to split the Republican Party asunder. And if Mike Pence had any ambitions to be the next presidential candidate,
Yep.
forget it, because although he's done the right thing today, what has he done in the last 6 months or the last few months? Why didn't he?
I'm wearing these boots, guys and girls. These are steel boots. So what I'm wearing here, the metal cap boots.
This is the first time
So you don't want to be getting kicked by these.
since the War of 1812. Add that to President Trump's list of legacy. Apologies, say again?
That was the British in 1812.
But where does this leave democracy? I mean, we see it under genuine assault in places like Hong Kong, and now, pictorially at least, under assault in America.
Wide steel ones, yeah.
Historians of democracy will be looking
because something was a
today
defeat.
in abject horror.
And normally you have people protesting to get an election result respected because the tin pot tyrant in power will not accept the result of the ballot box. Here you have the loser trying to get a mob to overturn the majority fair result. I mean, this sends a terrible signal around the world about the US. People like Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, Xi in China will be watching this with wry smiles on their faces. Where is America's moral authority now on a democracy now? Maybe in a few months, a few years, if Biden can bind the country together and it bounces back, you can say American democracy was strong enough to survive the Trump nightmare. But I think it's going to be very hard in the States to begin to bind these wounds and to stop the bloodletting, because these people and others who support them aren't just going to accept the result. It's kind of, and Trump isn't going to go away. I think Andrew's right. I think he's got the ability, Trump, now to split and divide and wreck the Republican Party. In fact, in some ways, for Biden and the Democrats, he's a great opponent, because you can go back to the Brexit decision in the UK, and those people who called it into question. I wanted a second referendum. I wanted it overturned. I thought people had been lied to and so on. But you had to accept the result was there, that the country had voted for something. And here in the States, they voted for a change by a majority of 7 million in the popular vote, clear majority in the electoral college. But Trump, because it's all about him, is kind of a messianic nutter. He just thinks he's got to stay, and he's prepared to burn the house down on his way out. And it's going to be very, very, very difficult for Biden. But I think it's going to be harder for the Republican Party now, because he's one of them, and he is utterly poisonous.
Well, it looks like the protesters are still on Capitol Hill, despite the curfew and the plea from the president to leave. There are pictures of camera equipment being destroyed, and certainly the perpetual fake news allegations has done nothing for the reputation of our profession. More worryingly still, there's a gallows and a noose as well in full view of the Capitol building, some distance off, even more concerning. You do wonder what President Trump has unleashed. And I know we thought that back in Charlottesville as well, and the white supremacist marches there. But, what has been unleashed in terms of division, at the very least then, Andrew?
Well, he's like a wrecker, isn't he? He's just fed into a discontent. And a lot of these people who are turning out probably didn't do very well out of Trump's presidency anyway. They're angry men, aren't they, in the main? Look at them. Angry young men, white men, probably more disadvantaged in terms of work and employment. And he's just unleashed a great rage against the establishment, the political establishment, the democratic system. And it's a violent rage. It's not constructive. It's not democratic. It's not in any way articulate. It's just mob rule, ugly, violent mob rule, and that will be the enduring metaphor, I'm afraid, for his presidency. Ugly, violent, and uncivilized.
I know you said Trump's attacks and complete accusations repeatedly of fake news hasn't been good for our industry. Actually, New York Times subscriptions have soared. CNN ratings are huge. So he might have misled a proportion, a significant proportion of the US population, but the majority clearly want facts and decency, which is why he lost that election. But I do wonder, and as I watched it, and yes, I think questions are going to be asked about security, the policing, obviously. But I'm not the only person to wonder if that was a Black Lives Matter protest, and they weren't white people by and large in that crowd, but they were black faces. How the police and the authorities would have reacted, and I suspect it would have been far more forcefully than just in one way, just standing aside and letting them through. They're shameful. They're shameful.
Kevin, I think it was just a complete misjudgment by the security tonight. I don't think it's anything about black or white. I think they just got it spectacularly and badly wrong, and they've got to get it right because we've got the inauguration in 2 weeks' time. But I tell you what, I think this now confirms 100% that Donald J. Trump will not be at the inauguration of Biden. That will be unprecedented, and normally I'd have said, shame on you. But actually, who wants him there now?
Well, the Save America March, which led to this, of course, was sanctioned by the US president. So, how do you police something like that? And thankfully, quick-thinking Senate staff managed to pull the Electoral College ballots, rescued them. The suggestion is they might have been burnt if the so-called mob had got them. So that would have. You can't rerun the election then, can you? But anyway, plenty more still to come in the next part of our programme. Back here in the UK, of course, efforts to get the COVID vaccine administered around the clock. Plenty more on that in this morning.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that, guys and girls. Give it a like, give it a comment, share your friends. What do you think about this? Will war happen with Joe Biden and Russia and China? Will China invade America, or will Russia invade America, or will they help each other, or will Donald was what am I going to don't know what I'm trying to say here. I mean, we all know Donald Trump's lost the vote by sabotage. Some people say 7 million for Joe Biden. But anyway, this is another short video. I've got to try and think of all these words to put on here. Thank you for joining me. Peace. Keep safe. Peace.